In this presentation, you will learn about cultural ecology. Cultural ecology is a theoretical perspective that endeavors to explain the adaptation of a culture to a specific environment and how changes in that environment bring about changes in that specific culture. This is a first theoretical approach that provides a causal explanation for the similarities and differences between cultures, since it focuses on overall environment, natural resources available, population and density, how the material culture or technology is related to basic survival or subsistence. It also studies how a traditional system of beliefs and behavior allows people to adapt to their environment. Cultural ecology was created as an anthropological subdiscipline which stresses the adaptive function of culture. Elements of the cultural ecology approach are reflected in ethnoecology, human behavioral ecology, political ecology, and the ecosystems approach. The central task of cultural ecologists is to study how humans in their society and through specific cultures interact with the larger environment. Human beings engage in what can be called as learned behavior that can be referred to as learned skill, technology, and other cultural responses of a people in a society. Emergence of cultural ecology approach. Cultural ecology approach was first developed by the American anthropologist Julian Stewart in the 1930s and 40s and became an influencing factor within anthropology and archaeology. It represents an approach that is distinct from the sociologically oriented human ecology approach. Stewart studied materially simple culture of Native Americans in the arid areas of the Great Basin. He emphasized on the adaptive function of culture, a process that he called cultural ecology, and inquired how culture change is induced by adaptation to environment. The concept of culture as a non-biological adaptation does not necessarily mean mechanical environmental determinism. Culture is a creative process which is influenced and stimulated by, but not determined by, the environment. These ideas are reflected in the book Theory of Culture Change, the Methodology of Multilinear Evolution. Stewart coined the term cultural ecology to describe his approach and is frequently referred to as the father of ecological studies in anthropology. Cultural ecology is understood as a continuation of his theory of multilinear evolution. Multilinear evolution searches for regularities in cultural change. Cultural laws can be understood as explanations as to why these changes occur. Patterns of interaction between parts of a society and the larger environment are related to patterns of historical change. In this context, cultural traditions with distinctive elements can be studied. Similarities and differences between cultures are meaningful and change in meaningful ways. Each society has its own historical trajectory through time. This, according to Stewart, sets the ground for cross-cultural studies. Stewart was the first to combine four approaches in studying the interaction between culture and environment. Culture was explained in terms of the environment where it existed rather than as a geographic relation with economy. The relationship between culture and environment is considered to be a process, not just a correlation. There was consideration of small-scale environment rather than culture area-sized regions, and the connection between ecology and multilinear cultural evolution. Stewart's eminent ecological work, Basin Plateau Aboriginal Socio-Political Groups, studied the lives of native people of Great Basin. In that work, he described the following: the general environment, important resources located, and utilization of those resources. Within the same work, he discussed the socio-political patterns and established their relation to technology, environment, and distribution of resource. Stewart made some path-breaking arguments which are as follows. Cultures in similar environments may have similar adaptations. all adaptations have a short life and are constantly adjusting to changing environments, and alterations in culture can elaborate existing culture or result in entirely new ones. Several anthropologists at the time used Stewart's approach to compare cultures in order to understand the factors that influence similar cultural development. In other words, similar adaptations. The basic premise of cultural ecology is that cultures, not individuals, adapt. This approach assumes that culture is superorganic, a concept Stewart borrowed from Alfred Kroeber. Cultural type and cultural core. Cultural ecology can be considered to be an adaptation by a unique culture modified historically in a distinctive environment. In the context of this definition, Stewart outlined a creative process of cultural change. Stewart focused on recurrent themes that could be understood by limited circumstances and distinct situations. This helps to identify and classify cultural types. Cultural type is an ideal heuristic tool designed for the study of cross-cultural parallels and regularities. This analytical instrument has several benefits. It allows the researcher to assemble regularities in cultures that have vastly different histories. This type of classification is based upon selected features of culture which are interrelated and are causally interdependent. These features are determined by a particular research problem within its own frame of reference. Stewart states that economic patterns are important because they are more directly related to other social, cultural, and political configurations. This is the cultural core. Stewart proposed that the adaptations need to be understood by first examining the cultural core, which was considered a crucial cultural component that determined the ability of culture to survive. The cultural core can be defined as the features of a society that are the most closely related to subsistence activities and economic arrangements. It consists of knowledge, technology, labor, and family organization, all of which were used to collect resources from the environment. Cultures are made up of interrelated parts. Depending on which traits are more influential than other traits, interdependence will also vary. The cultural core is grouped around subsistence activities and economic relationships. Secondary features are more closely related to historical contingencies and less directly related to the environment. Several technological innovations take place. Whether these technological innovations are accepted or rejected depends upon the environmental constraints and cultural requirements. Several factors such as population pressure, internal division of labor, regional specialization, environmental tension, economic surplus create the cultural conditions in which the technological innovation becomes attractive, leading to other cultural changes. These social adaptations have profound effects upon the kinship, politics, and social relations of a group. Since the introduction of cultural ecology approach by Stewart, anthropologists have expanded the definition of cultural ecology to include more abstract social concepts like social and political economy. They have gone further to apply it to the study of concepts and applications of power and resources. The theory has also contributed substantially in modern archaeological techniques and theories. One such technique is procedural archaeology, which places an emphasis on documenting the ways ancient cultures have adapted their technologies to suit their environment. It also studies how these cultures' use of resources has led to changes in the physical and biological characteristics of their surroundings. Cultural ecology theory has been criticized primarily for its undue emphasis on environmental determinism. Scholars regard this as a potentially dangerous oversimplification of social and cultural processes because it gives importance to the environment and ignores the significance and power of social and individual agency. Despite the criticism, the value of cultural ecology approach and its impact on the social sciences cannot be denied and today is being used very effectively. Conclusion. Stewart observed that the ecology of humans, both biological and cultural aspects, which were distinct from each other yet intertwined. He argued that cultural aspect was associated with technology. This set humans and their cultures as important and separate from the rest of the environment. While Stewart was correct in recognizing the difference between biological and cultural aspects of human ecology, he was wrong to view humans as separate from the rest of the environment. Thank you for watching the presentation.